people are looking at me.
They're not looking at you, they're looking at me.
The stores are not nice to people. I don't like it.
Stores are never nice to people. They're nice to credit cards.
From a dark thriller script to a feel-good fairy tale. From Julia Roberts nearly walking away to Richard Gere's piano scene being completely improvised. Pretty Woman wasn't supposed to be the romantic comedy we all know and love. It was supposed to be gritty, disturbing, and a whole lot darker. The original script had no happy ending, no shopping montages, and definitely no opera scene. Yet somehow, this movie became one of the highest-grossing romantic comedies of all time and launched Julia Roberts into superstardom. But behind that iconic red dress and the unforgettable line about big mistakes are stories most fans have never heard. Stories about casting disasters, on-set tensions, improvised moments that became legendary, and studio executives who nearly killed the whole project before it even began. These are 21 weird facts you didn't know about Pretty Woman. If you love deep dives into classic romance movies, hit subscribe. I cover the behind-the-scenes chaos, the almost cast disasters, and the secrets that made your favorite films iconic. Number 21. The original script was called 3000, and it was insanely dark. Screenwriter J.F. Lawton wrote a gritty drama about sex work, class warfare, and the exploitation of vulnerable women in Los Angeles. Edward wasn't a charming businessman. He was cold, transactional, and treated Vivian like property he could rent for a week. Vivian wasn't quirky and lovable. She was hardened, cynical, and trapped in a life she couldn't escape. The script ended with Edward throwing Vivian out of his car on Hollywood Boulevard, tossing $3,000 at her, and driving away forever. No kiss, no rescue, no happily ever after. Just a woman left standing on the street with cash in her hand and nothing else changed. Disney executives read it and saw dollar signs, but they knew it needed a complete overhaul. Director Gary Marshall was brought in specifically to turn this bleak story into something audiences could actually enjoy. He rewrote the ending, softened the characters, and transformed the whole tone from drama to romantic comedy. Lawton later admitted he barely recognized his own script by the time filming wrapped. Number 20. Vivian's iconic red opera dress wasn't red in the original design. Costume designer Marilyn Vance created it in black first, thinking it would look elegant for the opera scene, but it didn't pop on screen. It blended with the dark theater and didn't create the impact they needed. Marshall wanted Vivian to glow, so Vance redesigned it in red with white opera gloves. The moment Roberts wore it on set, everyone knew they had nailed it. That dress became one of the most memorable costume moments in romantic comedy history and is now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Number 19. Julia Roberts was not the first choice for Vivian Ward. Not even close. The studio wanted an established star, someone with box office pull who could guarantee ticket sales. Molly Ringwald was offered the role first. She turned it down because she didn't want to play a sex worker and thought the material was beneath her. Years later, she admitted it was one of the biggest career mistakes she ever made. After Ringwald passed, the studio pursued Meg Ryan, who was riding high off When Harry Met Sally. Ryan also declined, saying she didn't connect with the character and didn't see how the story could work as a romantic comedy. Daryl Hannah was seriously considered and even did screen tests with Richard Gere. The chemistry was fine, but not electric. Michelle Pfeiffer, Diane Lane, and even Madonna were all approached at various points. Madonna actually wanted the role and campaigned hard for it. But Disney executives were nervous about her controversial public image and didn't think she could pull off the vulnerability the character needed. Julia Roberts was a relative unknown at the time, with only a few small roles under her belt. But when she auditioned, Gary Marshall saw something nobody else had seen yet: star power. Gary fought the studio to cast her, and Roberts ended up not only landing the role but earning an Oscar nomination and becoming one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Number 18. Richard Gere didn't want to do the movie and had to be convinced by multiple people. Gere had serious reservations about playing Edward Lewis. He thought the character was too shallow, too one-dimensional, and didn't have enough emotional depth to make the romance believable. He worried the movie would flop and hurt his career, which was already struggling after a string of underperforming films. Gary Marshall spent weeks trying to convince Gere to sign on, but he kept saying no. Finally, Marshall enlisted Julia Roberts to help close the deal. Roberts flew to New York, where Gere was living at the time, met him in person, and made her pitch. She told him she believed in the movie, believed in their chemistry, and thought they could make something special together. Then she handed him a note that said, "Please say yes." Gere later said that moment was what changed his mind. He saw her passion, her commitment, and realized she was going to give everything to this role. If she believed in it that much, maybe he should too. He signed on the next day. Without Julia Roberts' personal intervention, Pretty Woman might never have happened with Richard Gere in the lead. Number 17. The famous jewelry box scene was completely improvised, and Julia Roberts' reaction was 100% genuine. In the scene where Edward playfully snaps the jewelry box shut on Vivian's fingers, that wasn't in the script. Richard Gere came up with the idea on the spot as a way to add a playful moment between the characters and break the tension of the serious conversation they were having. Gary Marshall loved spontaneous moments like this and always kept the cameras rolling even during rehearsals, just in case something magic happened. Roberts had no idea Gere was going to snap the box. When it happened, her laugh and surprised reaction were completely real. She wasn't acting. She was genuinely startled and amused. Marshall loved it so much he kept it in the final cut, and it became one of the most charming and memorable moments in the entire film. Audiences connected with that laugh because it felt authentic and unscripted, which it was. That single improvised moment is now one of the most replayed clips from the movie and shows up in every Pretty Woman tribute video and montage, all because Richard Gere decided to mess with Julia Roberts during a take. Number 16. The bathtub scene almost didn't make it into the movie because Julia Roberts was terrified of being underwater. Roberts has always been open about her fear of submerging her head underwater, a phobia that goes back to her childhood. When she read the script and saw the bathtub scene where Vivian sinks under the bubbles with her Walkman, she immediately panicked. She told Gary Marshall she didn't think she could do it and asked if they could rewrite the scene to cut the underwater moment. Marshall, ever the problem solver, worked with Roberts to find a compromise. They shot the scene in a way that required minimal time underwater, used a stand-in for some of the wider shots, and made sure Roberts felt safe and in control the entire time. They did multiple takes with very short intervals of her being submerged, so she could get through it without triggering her phobia. The final cut uses quick edits and strategic camera angles to make it look seamless, but Roberts later admitted that scene was one of the hardest things she filmed for the entire movie. Not because of emotional difficulty, but because of her genuine fear of going underwater. The fact that audiences have no idea she was struggling is a testament to her professionalism and Marshall's directorial skill. Number 15. The shopping montage on Rodeo Drive was inspired by a real experience Julia Roberts had before filming. Roberts went shopping on Rodeo Drive one day, while she was still a struggling actress, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. She walked into a high-end boutique and was immediately treated with condescension and judgment by the sales staff. They looked her up and down, assumed she couldn't afford anything, and basically ignored her or made her feel unwelcome. Roberts was humiliated and angry, but she didn't forget it. When she got the role of Vivian and read the famous shopping scene where Vivian returns to the boutique and confronts the rude saleswomen, Roberts channeled that real-life experience into her performance. The line, "big mistake, big, huge," wasn't just a character moment. It was Julia Roberts delivering a middle finger to every salesperson who ever judged her based on her appearance. Gary Marshall knew about Roberts' experience and encouraged her to tap into that real emotion. The scene resonated with audiences because so many people have felt dismissed or judged based on how they looked, and watching Vivian get her revenge was deeply satisfying. That scene is now considered one of the most iconic moments in the film and has been quoted and parodied endlessly in pop culture. Number 14. The polo match scene was a disaster behind the scenes. The production hired real polo players and horses, but nobody accounted for how unpredictable they'd be on set. Players missed marks, horses refused to cooperate, and the schedule fell apart. Marshall was losing his mind trying to get usable footage. Roberts had never been around horses and was visibly nervous. Gere tried to coach her, but the chaos made everything harder. They shot for 2 very long days, using tons of coverage to piece together something coherent in editing. The final cut looks polished, but it was a logistical nightmare that nearly broke the production. Number 13. The piano scene where Edward plays for Vivian was completely improvised by Richard Gere, and the song choice was his idea. Gere is an accomplished pianist in real life, and suggested to Gary Marshall that it would add depth to Edward's character if they showed him playing piano as a way to reveal his softer, more introspective side. Marshall loved the idea and told Gere to just play whatever felt right in the moment. Gere sat down at the piano and started playing a piece he had been working on, and the cameras rolled. Julia Roberts, who was off to the side waiting for direction, didn't know what Gere was going to play or how long the scene would last. Her reaction, watching him and being drawn into the music, was genuine and unscripted. The intimacy of that moment, where words aren't needed and the characters connect through music and silence, became one of the most romantic and emotionally resonant scenes in the movie. Audiences loved it because it felt real and tender, which it was. Gere wasn't performing for the camera. He was playing piano the way he would in his own home, and that authenticity came through. The scene also showed Edward as more than just a rich businessman. It revealed his loneliness and his need for connection, which made his eventual transformation more believable. Number 12. The fire escape scene where Edward climbs up to rescue Vivian was a deliberate callback to classic fairy tales and Gary Marshall's way of making the ending feel earned. Marshall knew the original dark ending wouldn't work for the tone they had built throughout the film, but he also didn't want the happy ending to feel cheap or unearned. He needed a grand romantic gesture that audiences would believe and remember. The fire escape was his answer. Instead of a prince arriving on a white horse, Edward shows up in a white limousine and conquers his fear of heights to climb up and get his princess. It was a modern fairy tale twist that honored the story's roots while feeling fresh and specific to these characters. Richard Gere was not thrilled about climbing the fire escape because he's genuinely uncomfortable with heights, but he pushed through it for the scene. Marshall kept the setup simple, shot it quickly, and made sure Gere felt safe the entire time. The image of Edward standing on that fire escape, holding an umbrella and flowers, asking Vivian what happens after the princess rescues the prince, became the defining image of the entire movie. It's the moment that sealed Pretty Woman's legacy as one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made. Number 11. Julia Roberts' famous laugh throughout the movie was 100% natural, and Gary Marshall loved it so much he wrote more scenes to feature it. Roberts has one of the most distinctive laughs in Hollywood, loud and unfiltered and completely genuine. During early rehearsals, Marshall noticed how her laugh lit up every scene and made the people around her smile. He realized that laugh was Vivian's superpower. It was what made her charming, disarming, and impossible not to love. So Marshall started writing moments specifically designed to make Roberts laugh naturally on camera. The opera scene where Vivian snort laughs, the breakfast scene where she's giggling at Edward's teasing, the hotel lobby scene where she's trying not to crack up. All of those were built around Roberts' real personality and real reactions. Marshall understood that audiences connect with authenticity, and Roberts' laugh was the most authentic thing about her performance. It made Vivian feel like a real person, not a caricature or a fantasy. That laugh became so iconic that it's now considered one of Julia Roberts' signature traits as an actress, and it all started with Gary Marshall recognizing it as gold and building an entire character around it. Number 10. The costume budget was surprisingly low, and Marilyn Vance had to get creative. The production didn't have massive funds for costumes, so Vance scoured vintage shops, borrowed from designer showrooms, and created pieces herself. The polka dot polo dress was borrowed and returned after filming. The brown and white shopping dress was a vintage find under $50. The only splurge was the red opera gown. Vance's resourcefulness paid off. The costumes look expensive and timeless on screen, and most audiences have no idea they were created on a shoestring budget. Number 9. The famous necklace Vivian wears to the opera was worth $250,000, and Julia Roberts was terrified of losing it. The necklace was borrowed from a prestigious jewelry house specifically for the opera scene, and the production had to hire armed security to transport it to and from the set every single day. Roberts was told repeatedly how much the necklace was worth and warned that if anything happened to it, the production would be liable for the full replacement cost. This made her incredibly anxious every time she wore it. She was afraid she'd snag it on something, drop it, or somehow damage it during filming. The crew had to constantly reassure her that everything was fine and that security was watching the necklace at all times. Between takes, the necklace was immediately removed and placed back in a secured case under guard. Roberts later joked that wearing that necklace was more stressful than any scene she had to perform because the weight of responsibility was so intense. But on screen, she looks completely at ease, elegant, and confident, which is a testament to her acting ability. The necklace became as iconic as the red dress itself, and jewelry designers have been recreating versions of it for decades. But the original piece, worth $250,000 in 1990, remains one of the most expensive props ever used in a romantic comedy. Number 8. Gere and Roberts didn't get along perfectly during filming. Gere was a method actor who liked staying in character and working seriously. Roberts was spontaneous and preferred keeping the set light between takes. This clash led to friction, especially during emotional scenes. Marshall mediated, giving each actor what they needed. By the end, they found mutual respect. But it wasn't instant friendship. The tension never broke the production, but it was real. Number 7. The opera scene where Vivian cries was not scripted, and Julia Roberts improvised the emotional reaction based on her own experience. Roberts had never attended an opera before filming, so Marshall arranged for her to see La Traviata live. She was completely overwhelmed. The music, the drama, the raw emotion of the performers hit her harder than expected. She cried during the performance and felt a deep connection to the story. When filming the scene, Marshall told Roberts to tap into that real emotional experience. He wanted her to show Vivian being moved by something beautiful and unfamiliar. Roberts channeled her genuine reaction from seeing the opera for the first time. The tears you see on screen are real. The emotion is authentic. Roberts remembered how the opera made her feel and allowed herself to experience it again. That vulnerability and honesty made the scene incredibly powerful and showed Vivian as someone capable of depth and transformation. The scene works because Roberts brought her real-life experience into the performance. Number 6. The hotel staff subplot was added late in production. The original script focused almost exclusively on Edward and Vivian, with little interaction with hotel employees. Marshall felt the story needed more warmth, so he expanded Barney Thompson's role and the other staff. Hector Elizondo became Marshall's secret weapon, and he kept giving him more material. The scenes where Barney helps Vivian navigate high society showed that Vivian was worthy of respect from everyone, not just Edward. The hotel staff became her found family, and their acceptance made the fairy tale feel more grounded. Elizondo's performance is now considered one of the film's highlights. Number 5. The line, "I want the fairy tale," was not in the original script and was added during a late-stage rewrite to make Vivian's arc more emotionally clear. In early drafts, Vivian's motivations and desires were more ambiguous. She wanted financial security and a way out of her life, but the emotional stakes weren't as defined. Gary Marshall and the writers realized they needed a moment where Vivian explicitly states what she's really looking for, not money or status, but love and connection and the fantasy of being rescued and cherished. That's when they wrote the scene where Vivian admits to Edward that she wants the fairy tale. The whole package, the love story she's always dreamed of, but never believed she could have. That line crystallized the entire movie. It made Vivian's arc about more than just survival or a better life. It made it about hope and the belief that she deserved happiness and love just like anyone else. Julia Roberts delivered the line with such sincerity and vulnerability that it became the emotional thesis of the film. When Edward shows up on that fire escape at the end, he's not just rescuing her. He's giving her the fairy tale she asked for. That line turned Pretty Woman from a decent romantic comedy into a timeless love story that still resonates with audiences over 30 years later. Number 4. The chemistry test between Julia Roberts and Richard Gere was so electric that Disney executives immediately knew they had something special. Chemistry tests are standard procedure in Hollywood, but most of the time they're awkward and uncomfortable because actors are meeting for the first time and trying to fake intimacy with a stranger. When Roberts and Gere did their chemistry test, something different happened. They clicked immediately. The banter felt natural. The attraction felt real. The push and pull dynamic that makes Edward and Vivian's relationship so compelling was there from the very first read-through. Gary Marshall watched the test and knew he had his leads. Studio executives watched it, and started getting excited about the movie's potential in a way they hadn't before. That chemistry is what makes Pretty Woman work. Without it, the movie would have been a shallow fantasy. With it, the movie became a love story people believed in. Roberts and Gere had that rare, indefinable magic that can't be manufactured or forced. They made audiences root for these characters and believe they belonged together despite the absurd circumstances of their relationship. The chemistry test footage still exists in the Disney archives, and people who've seen it say you can watch the movie being born in that moment. Number 3. The soundtrack became a massive hit and helped revive Roy Orbison's career posthumously. The use of Oh, Pretty Woman connected the movie to classic pop culture and introduced Orbison's music to a new generation. The soundtrack went multi-platinum. Roxette's It Must Have Been Love became a worldwide smash and is still one of the greatest love ballads ever. Marshall was meticulous about song selection, knowing exactly what emotional beats each track should hit. The soundtrack became integral to the movie and helped cement the film's place in pop culture history. Number 2. Julia Roberts almost quit acting entirely after Pretty Woman because the sudden fame and media scrutiny became overwhelming. The movie turned Roberts into an overnight superstar, but that fame came with a level of invasion and pressure she wasn't prepared for. Tabloids followed her everywhere. Paparazzi camped outside her home. Every detail of her personal life became public fodder. Strangers felt entitled to her time and attention. The relentless scrutiny took a serious toll on her mental health, and she seriously considered walking away from Hollywood altogether. She later admitted that the year following Pretty Woman's release was one of the darkest periods of her life, and she struggled with anxiety and the loss of privacy. What kept her from quitting was the support of close friends and the realization that acting was her passion, and she didn't want to let fear and media pressure take that away from her. She stepped back from the spotlight for a while, turned down major roles, and focused on finding balance and protecting her personal life. Eventually, she came back stronger and more selective about the projects she chose. But the trauma of that sudden fame never fully went away. And Roberts has been vocal about the cost of celebrity and the toll it takes on mental health. Pretty Woman made her a star, but it also nearly broke her. Number 1. Pretty Woman was initially rated R, and the studio fought hard to get it down to PG-13 to maximize box office potential. The original cut of the film contained more explicit content, stronger language, and clearer references to Vivian's profession that pushed it firmly into R-rated territory. Disney executives panicked because they knew an R rating would limit the audience and hurt ticket sales, especially among younger viewers and families. They pressured Gary Marshall to cut scenes, soften language, and re-edit moments to make the film more palatable to a broader audience. Marshall resisted at first because he didn't want to sanitize the story to the point where it lost its edge and honesty. But eventually, he made strategic cuts and adjustments that brought the rating down without compromising the story's integrity. The final PG-13 version walked a fine line between maintaining the reality of Vivian's life and keeping the tone light and romantic enough for mainstream audiences. That balancing act is part of what made Pretty Woman so successful. It didn't shy away from the darker aspects of the story, but it also didn't dwell on them in a way that made audiences uncomfortable. The PG-13 rating opened the movie up to a massive audience and helped it become a cultural phenomenon. But the fight to get that rating was intense, stressful, and came down to the wire. If the studio had been forced to release it as an R-rated film, Pretty Woman might have been a modest success instead of a box office juggernaut that redefined the romantic comedy genre for a generation. And that's the full story behind Pretty Woman. A movie that almost didn't happen, cast with actors who almost didn't take the roles, and transformed from a dark drama into a fairy tale romance that audiences still love over 30 years later. If you want more deep dives into classic romance films, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.